Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. It was a gray morning on the New York subway. The train was packed, faces hurried and tired, each lost in their own thoughts. Malik Thompson, a 25-year-old black man, stood leaning against the metal pole, clutching his backpack tightly. His gaze flickered distractedly at the advertising panels, but his mind was elsewhere, preoccupied with the interview he was about to have at a Manhattan startup. As the train pulled into a station, a blonde woman, visibly pregnant, boarded and looked for a seat. Malik, without thinking, stood up immediately. "Take my seat, madam," he said with a polite smile. She thanked him, her eyes sparkling with a mixture of gratitude and weariness. This simple gesture, seemingly insignificant to Malik, triggered a series of events he could never have imagined. A few minutes later, he found himself drawn into an unexpected conversation with this woman, who introduced herself as Isabella Harper, an influential entrepreneur in the medical technology sector. Charmed by her charisma and impressed by her presence, Malik felt a strange connection forming between them. But what he didn't yet know was that Isabella wasn't just a tired pregnant woman on the subway. She was about to offer him an opportunity that would change his life forever, a chance that could turn his dreams into reality, but that would also test his courage, his values, and his determination. That day, by simply giving up his seat, Malik had just opened a door to a future he had never dared to imagine. A chance encounter, a gesture of courtesy, and destiny began to trace a path that neither of them would ever forget. Malik Thompson stepped off the subway with a slight smile, recalling the moment he'd given up his seat to Isabella Harper. He didn't know why, but something in her eyes had struck him, a weariness mixed with a quiet strength, as if she carried far more than just her pregnancy on her shoulders. He shook his head to clear the thought. After all, it was just a polite gesture, nothing more. However, he had barely turned the corner when his phone vibrated. An unknown message. "Thank you for your kindness. Let's meet. IH." Malik frowned. He didn't know this woman, and she seemed mysterious. But curiosity got the better of him. He simply replied, "Why not? When?" A few hours later, Malik found himself in a chic Manhattan cafe. Isabella was waiting for him, a warm smile on her face and documents scattered before her. She was no longer simply that pregnant woman on the subway. She was confident, elegant, and her presence commanded respect. "I didn't expect you to accept," she said, laughing slightly. "I admit I don't understand everything," Malik replied, trying to hide his nervousness. Isabella handed him a file. "I run Harper Biotech. We're working on a groundbreaking project to improve access to medical care for high-risk pregnant women. We need someone like you." Malik opened the file. The figures, the plans, the strategies, it all seemed overwhelming. But he sensed it was a unique opportunity. And at that moment, he understood that his action on the subway hadn't been insignificant. He had just crossed the first threshold into a world he had never dared to imagine. "Are you serious?" he asked, incredulous. "More than ever," Isabella replied with an enigmatic smile. "And I believe you can be too." Leaving the cafe that day, Malik felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had just discovered that sometimes, a simple act of kindness could change an entire life. But he didn't yet know that this was only the beginning of a series of trials, revelations, and unexpected encounters that would change his destiny forever. The following Monday, Malik arrived at Harper Biotech headquarters for his first day of work. The building, imposing and modern, looked like something out of a movie. The glass walls reflected the morning sun, and busy employees, all impeccably dressed, came and went. Malik felt a small knot of apprehension in his stomach. Isabella greeted him personally, despite her pregnant belly and slightly hesitant gait. "Welcome to Harper Biotech, Malik. Today, you begin an adventure that I promise you, will be extraordinary." She introduced him to the team, engineers, analysts, and scientists with impressive profiles, all working on cutting-edge technologies. Malik immediately felt overwhelmed. He had never been surrounded by so much knowledge and expertise. But Isabella, with her sharp and encouraging gaze, gave him confidence. "I know you feel you're not up to the task," she said gently, "but what we're looking for isn't just degrees or experience. We're looking for courage, curiosity, and the ability to learn." Throughout the day, Malik was introduced to Harper Biotech's projects, protocols, and challenges. He began to grasp the scope of the work: programs to monitor the health of pregnant women in high-risk areas, medical innovations, and international partnerships. Every document, every meeting, every discussion seemed to push him to excel. At lunchtime, Isabella sat down next to him. "I wanted you to know why I contacted you," she said, placing her hand on his stomach. "You have what we call a human instinct. You dared to make a simple, yet meaningful gesture. And that kind of heart, it's rare in this world." Malik felt a strange warmth. These words, simple yet sincere, seemed to resonate deep within him. He was beginning to understand that this job would not only test his intelligence or skills, but also his ability to remain human in a ruthless world. At the end of the day, as he left the office, Malik gazed at the orange sky of Manhattan. He reflected that this simple act on the subway had opened the door to a world he never thought he'd reach. And he didn't yet know that the challenges, betrayals, and revelations would begin much sooner than he expected. In the days that followed, Malik immersed himself completely in his work at Harper Biotech. Every morning, he arrived early, reread documents, and asked questions, trying to understand the complex workings of the company. Isabella guided him, but she also had a knack for challenging him, constantly pushing him further. One afternoon, while analyzing reports on a pilot project monitoring high-risk pregnant women, Malik noticed something strange. Some data seemed missing, files were encrypted, and handwritten notes were left unexplained. He asked a colleague, David Reynolds, a seasoned analyst with a cold and calculating demeanor. "These files, why is some information missing?" David looked at him suspiciously. "That's not really your business right now. Focus on what's being asked of you." Malik felt a chill. The atmosphere that had seemed perfect and welcoming on the day of his arrival was beginning to show cracks. He decided to remain discreet but to keep an eye on these anomalies. Later, Isabella invited him into her office. She seemed preoccupied, her brow furrowed. "Malik, there's something you need to know," she said softly. "Harper Biotech is under pressure. Investors, competitors, everyone wants our data. We have to be careful." She handed him a small folder containing notes on potential threats, industrial espionage attempts, and internal tensions. Malik then realized that his role was not only technical, he also had to learn to navigate an environment where every move could be monitored and every mistake exploited. That evening, Malik returned home with a mixture of fascination and concern. He understood that by giving up his seat on the subway, he had not only found an opportunity, but had also launched himself into a complex world, where loyalties, secrets, and rivalries would quickly test his resolve. As he was getting ready for bed, his phone vibrated again. An unknown message, this time without a signature. "Malik, you're touching something you shouldn't. Be careful." The young man felt his heart beat faster. A simple seat given up on the subway, and suddenly his destiny began to transform into a labyrinth of mysteries and dangers. A week later, Malik was working late in Harper Biotech's modern offices. Night was falling on Manhattan, and the city shone through the windows like an ocean of light. The silence of the office was broken only by the click of his keyboard. As he was double-checking some sensitive data, a discreet alarm sounded on his computer. An unauthorized intrusion had been detected. Malik felt his heart race. He knew these files contained information vital to Isabella's projects and the thousands of women who depended on their innovations. Before he could react, his phone vibrated. "Stop everything. You're being watched." At that moment, David Reynolds entered the room, a cold smile on his lips. "I assume you saw the message," he said calmly. "We don't want you getting involved in this particular case, Malik. It's dangerous." Malik felt anger rising. "David, I work here to do good, not to hide behind secrets. If someone puts this data at risk, lives are on the line. David burst into a dry laugh. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. You think Harper Biotech is just a humanitarian project? No. It's a power game, and you're just another pawn. Malik, however, did not back down. He knew he couldn't give up. Inspired by the courage he had shown on the subway by giving up his seat to Isabella, he decided to protect the projects and find out who was trying to sabotage the company. Later that evening, he confided in Isabella. She placed her hand on his shoulder, her gaze filled with gravity and admiration. Malik, you made the right choice. Few people would have had your courage. But now you must be ready. What we are doing here is not only scientific, it is also political. And some people will do everything to stop us. Malik then understood that his adventure had just reached a new level. It was no longer just a career opportunity, it was a battle for integrity, for truth, and for the well-being of hundreds of women who depended on their project. As he left the office, the night was silent, but Malik sensed that something was waiting for him in the shadows. The simple decision to give up his seat to a woman on the subway had opened the door to a world where every gesture mattered, and where every mistake could be fatal. A few days after the break-in incident, Malik sensed that the atmosphere at Harper Biotech had become more tense. Every conversation seemed measured, every smile a little forced. He knew that someone among them was playing a double game. One afternoon, while working on a critical update to the medical tracking project, Malik caught David Reynolds copying files onto a USB drive. Malik's heart pounded. He knew he had finally found the link between the anonymous threats and the internal betrayal. Without wasting a second, Malik discreetly took a picture of the screen and headed towards Isabella's office. She was waiting for him, her expression serious but calm. Isabella. David, he's... Malik began, panting. Isabella took the photo and examined every detail carefully. Her face froze for a moment, but she remained calm. Malik, you've shown excellent instincts. It seems you can not only understand the project, but also protect what we've built. She gestured for Malik to follow her into a private room. We're going to act, she said. But we have to be strategic. David must never suspect that we know. Over the next few hours, Malik and Isabella devised a plan to secure the data and trap the traitor. They installed a discreet surveillance system and prepared a fake document that David would be tempted to steal. The next morning, their plan paid off. David was caught red-handed, and Isabella confronted him calmly and firmly. Malik watched, impressed by her composure and her ability to handle the situation without wasting any time. Later, Isabella sat with Malik in his office. She placed her hand on her stomach and said softly, Malik, you showed today that you are not just an employee, but someone I can count on in crucial moments. Few people have that courage and integrity. Malik felt a wave of pride and emotion wash over him. He understood that this experience went far beyond a simple job. He had found his place, a role where his values and courage were recognized and needed. As he left the office that evening, Malik watched the city lights twinkle. He knew more challenges lay ahead, but he was ready to face them. The simple decision to give up his seat on the subway had led him down a path he never could have imagined, and he was finally beginning to accept that his destiny was intertwined with Isabella's and Harper Biotech's. A few weeks after the David Reynolds case, Malik sensed a new tension in the air. Harper Biotech continued to thrive, but the project's security still seemed to be at risk. Isabella had entrusted him with more responsibilities, and he was beginning to assert himself in this role. One morning, while he was checking reports on a new monitoring device for pregnant women, an encrypted email arrived in his inbox. You think you're safe? Your plan is already compromised. Think about your next moves. Malik felt a chill. This time, it wasn't a colleague seeking to cause harm, but an external threat, someone who wanted to take advantage of Harper Biotech's innovations for obscure and probably lucrative reasons. He immediately told Isabella, who frowned. Malik, we knew the competition would be fierce, but I didn't think they would go so far as to directly threaten our employees. She handed him a reinforced protection plan and explained the measures to be taken, increased access monitoring, file security, and maximum confidentiality protocol. Malik understood that mere courage was no longer enough. He now had to think strategically, anticipate every move, and become a true shield for the project. That same evening, Malik stayed late at the office to check all the systems and create digital decoys to fool intruders. He began to see his efforts bear fruit. Any attempt at unauthorized access was immediately detected and blocked. Isabella then entered the surveillance room, a proud smile on her face. "Malik, you've really changed since the subway. What you've accomplished today exceeds my expectations." Malik blushed slightly, but replied seriously, "I only did what was necessary. This project, it's bigger than me, or you, or Harper Biotech. It's about women, families, lives. I can't let someone destroy it." Isabella placed her hand on his shoulder. "And that's precisely why you're indispensable. But prepare yourself, what we've faced so far is just a taste of what's to come. The real work begins now." As Malik left the office, he felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, but also a newfound determination. The simple act of giving up his seat on the subway had led him down this perilous path, and he knew he had to be ready for whatever came next. A few days after the external threat alert, Malik began to notice strange behavior among the team. Some employees seemed nervous, others exchanged furtive glances. A hunch told him there was a spy among them. One evening, while staying late to check the security systems, Malik caught an unknown employee, Lucas Bennett, a young engineer recently hired, copying sensitive files onto a tablet. Malik felt his blood run cold. He knew he had to act quickly. He discreetly contacted Isabella through their secure channel. Within minutes, Isabella entered the monitoring room calmly and resolutely. "Malik, we need to be strategic. If we confront him too soon, he'll disappear with our data." They decided to set a trap for Lucas. Isabella gave him a fake file containing highly sensitive, fabricated information, while monitoring his every move. Trusting Lucas, he began transferring the files to an external platform. Malik and Isabella were finally able to uncover the full extent of his betrayal. The next day, Isabella confronted Lucas in a surprise meeting. Her face paled under the pressure, and Malik watched, impressed by his mentor's composure and self-control. "Harper Biotech does not tolerate this kind of behavior," Isabella said firmly. "Any unauthorized access will be immediately reported to the authorities." Lucas was fired on the spot and the authorities were alerted. Malik felt a mixture of relief and tension. The immediate danger had passed, but he knew that other enemies were waiting, lurking in the shadows. Later in the office, Isabella placed her hand on her stomach and smiled at Malik. "Today, you proved that you could protect this project and anticipate dangers. Few people would have dared to act like you." Malik felt a profound sense of pride. He understood that the simple act of giving up his seat on the subway had led him to this crucial role. He was no longer just an employee, he was becoming a strategist, someone capable of protecting what truly mattered. As he left the office that evening, the city shone under a starry sky. Malik felt that the trials were only just beginning, but he knew he was ready to face whatever fate had in store. A few weeks after the spy incident, Malik thought he could finally breathe a sigh of relief. But a new message changed everything. "We know who you are, Malik. Don't go near the project again or you'll regret it." The tone was threatening, direct, and personal. For the first time, Malik felt that the danger was no longer solely professional, it affected him directly. The simple decision to give up his seat on the subway now seemed to link him to an invisible network of threats. He immediately shared the message with Isabella, who frowned. "Malik, this is getting serious. Some people won't hesitate to go to great lengths to stop Harper Biotech." To protect Malik, Isabella took extra precautions, personal surveillance, secure routes, and limited contact. But she knew that fear could not be their guide. "You must stay focused. Your courage is our best weapon," she said gravely. Malik, however, felt a growing tension coursing through his veins. Every step he took in the city, every conversation, seemed to be under scrutiny. But this pressure revealed an unexpected aspect of his inner strength. He discovered he was capable of remaining calm, analyzing situations, and making quick decisions even under direct threat. Meanwhile, their collaboration with Isabella grew closer and more intimate. Malik came to better understand the motivations and concerns of the woman who had given him this opportunity. Their interactions went beyond mere work. Confidences, life advice, and a deep mutual respect were woven into every conversation. One evening, while they were working late together on a critical medical follow-up project, Isabella smiled at Malik. "You've changed, Malik. What you thought was a simple gesture on the subway has led you here, and you've proven that you can face the impossible." Malik felt a warmth in his chest. He understood that personal danger and external threats had revealed his courage, his loyalty, and above all, his ability to connect deeply with those he respected and admired. As he walked home that evening, Malik realized that his life had changed drastically since that morning on the subway. The threat was real, the danger imminent, but he knew he was ready to face anything to protect the project, Isabella, and everything they stood for together. Tensions were running high at Harper Biotech. The threats hung heavily over Malik and Isabella, but they both knew it was time to take action. Ignoring the danger was no longer an option. In Isabella's office, surrounded by surveillance monitors and strategic files, she and Malik devised a daring plan to identify and permanently neutralize the enemies. Isabella explained, "We're going to create a diversion, draw the threat to us, and discover who's really pulling the strings. But we have to be precise. One mistake and everything will fall apart." Malik, with his courage and knowledge of the terrain, played a central role. They set up a system of booby-trapped files, monitored communications, and prepared decoys to lure the intruder into a digital trap. Every move was calculated, every detail anticipated. A few days later, the attack arrived, exactly as planned. A hacker attempted to access critical data, triggering alerts. Malik, behind his screen, monitored the actions down to the second. The intruder fell into the trap, exposing not only his presence but also the identities of the insiders who had planned the attack from the shadows. Isabella entered the surveillance room, her face grave but proud. "Malik, you were exceptional. Without your instinct and your quick thinking, we could never have thwarted this plan." The final confrontation with the intruders took place under police surveillance. Those responsible were arrested, and Harper Biotech emerged unscathed from the crisis. Malik felt a mixture of relief and pride. Their project was secure, and their courage had paid off. Later, Isabella and Malik found themselves alone in the office. She placed her hand on her stomach, a tired but happy smile on her lips. "Malik, you have proven that courage, loyalty, and intelligence can make all the difference. What we have accomplished together is much more than just a project." Malik, his heart pounding, understood that this moment symbolized much more than a professional victory. He had just discovered his inner strength and the depth of the trust he had gained from Isabella. As he left the office that evening, Malik looked at the illuminated city and reflected on the journey he had made since that morning on the subway. A simple decision, a kind gesture, had led him to battles he never could have imagined, and to human connections he would always cherish. The weeks following the neutralization of the threats were intense, but for Malik, they were also revealing. Harper Biotech was returning to its normal pace, but with renewed confidence. Malik had earned not only the respect of the entire team, but also a unique place in Isabella's life. One bright morning, Isabella invited him onto the terrace of the company headquarters. The city stretched out at their feet, sparkling in the morning sun. She placed her hand on her stomach and looked at Malik with a smile full of tenderness and complicity. "Malik, everything we've been through, it's thanks to you. You transformed this project, and in a way, you transformed my life too." Malik felt a profound emotion wash over him. He thought back to that morning on the subway, when he had given up his seat to a woman he didn't know. Who would have thought that a simple gesture of courtesy would lead to all this: trust, courage, battles overcome, and an unbreakable bond with Isabella? "I only did what I thought was right," he replied, his voice filled with emotion. "But I must admit, I never imagined my life would change so much that day." Isabella smiled and placed her hand on his shoulder. Sometimes, a small gesture has gigantic consequences. You've learned that better than anyone. And I believe this is just the beginning of something bigger, for us and for Harper Biotech. As the sun bathed Manhattan in its golden light, Malik understood that his gesture in the subway had not only opened a professional door, it had opened a new horizon for his life, rich in opportunities, challenges, and deep human relationships. The road had not been easy, and other obstacles would undoubtedly arise. But for the first time, Malik felt that he was ready to face whatever life threw at him, with courage, loyalty, and an open heart. And so, a simple act of courtesy had transformed his life forever, proving that sometimes, the greatest adventures begin with the most modest actions.